Hey, what is up, everyone? Welcome to the Crack House Chronicles. I am Donnie, your host, and with me is a man who once asked Santa Claus for something to play with for Christmas, and all he got was a pair of pants with a hole in the pocket. It's Dale.
Oh, what's going on, man?
What's up, dude?
I believe you left me a little short on that one, don't you think?
You think Santa Claus shortchanged you on that deal?
Yeah, I think I got the short end of the stick.
Oh, man. Oh, what's going on today, dude?
Oh, not much, man. Ready to get this going. I think it's going to be a good show today.
Yeah, we've got a good episode today. You got any good shout-outs for us this week, dude?
I do. We got to give us some shout-out to Samantha Lohman. Thank you so much for your donation that you dropped in there. Our gas fund from our website. We appreciate you going by there and helping us out. That really means a lot to us. Thank you very much. And got a shout out to Dakota Sperlin, who hit us up and gave us a big recommendation on Facebook and left some kind words for us. So we'd just like to give her a shout out too. And thanks, you guys. We appreciate it.
We do appreciate it. We appreciate everybody that comes on our website and our social media accounts and likes what we post. And we appreciate all of our listeners. And remind everybody too, if whatever platform you listen to us on, if it allows a rate or review, please click that 5-star button and give us a review. It really does help. I promise you it helps boost us to the top of the ratings.
You promise?
I promise.
Is that like a pinky swear?
Yeah, pinky swear. I pinky swear. All right, Dale, we're going to get into this episode this week. And, man, we're just going to go ahead and throw this out there because we're just going to give everybody a warning. If you have small kids or anybody that's sensitive to murder and gruesome stuff, this episode is not for them. So you might want to just, get them away from it or turn it off and listen to it at another time.
Put your headphones on.
Exactly, because this episode is going to deal with some pretty gruesome stuff.
And minor murder.
Yeah.
It's easy for me to say.
Yeah, it's going to be rough. So just a warning there.
All right, then.
All right.
So what we got going on that's so rough?
We have the case of Donald Henry Peewee Gaskins, who was once labeled, Dale, the meanest man in America.
Ooh.
He also had several other nicknames.
What was it?
One of them was the Redneck Charles Manson, the Hitchhiker's Killer, Junior Parrot, and Peewee.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That Peewee is probably the scariest one.
Yeah, I would say so. He got the name Peewee because he was really short in stature. He was only been reported several different ways and different heights, but the most I've heard he was 5'2".
Yeah.
Adult age.
Yeah. So
not very tall at all. So I guess that's why they call him Peewee.
Yeah, 5'2", about $130, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, a little short dude.
Yeah, he got it when he was when his mom gave it to him when he was born. He was only like 4 pounds when he was born. So
yeah.
So he's pretty much been Peewee his whole life.
All right, Dale. Let's talk about Donald Gaskins. He was born.
Are you scared to call him Peewee?
You want to call him Peewee in this episode?
Yeah, I ain't scared of him. He's dead.
Yeah, we'll call him Peewee. All right,
Spoiler alert.
We will refer to him as Peewee or Peewee Gaskins in this episode.
Yeah.
All right, Dale. Peewee was born on March the 13th, 1933, in Florence County, South Carolina, to Eulia Parrott. And he, like we said, he was small for his age and immediately gained the nickname Peewee.
Yep.
Yeah. So, that wasn't good for him at all. Now, Peewee's mom, she was pretty poor, Dale.
Yep.
They didn't have much at all. Worked on a cotton farm and tobacco farm and picked that stuff for a living. I mean, that's rough living in South Carolina.
Yeah, she quit school at 12, to help her family out. So that'll tell you something right there.
Yeah. The way that Peewee came into this world, that, she had sex with a guy named Mr. Gaskins. And he was a wealthy, well-known neighbor of Peewee's mom.
He's a big spender, too.
Yeah. And he loved to gamble and drink. And he actually paid Peewee's mom $1 for sex several times a week. And she got pregnant at 14. And Mr. Gaskins paid Peewee's mom $10 a month and allowed her to live in a small 3-bedroom shack with their kid. So I guess it was pretty nice of him. I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, 14. Come on.
But I mean, he was.
Which is 1930. I don't know what the standard is.
Yeah, but I mean, now, sometime around the age of 1 year old, when Pee Wee was 1 year old, Dale, he drank a bottle of kerosene.
That ain't good.
No, and this caused Pee Wee to go into convulsions. A lot of times during his childhood, even up to the age of 3 years old, he would have convulsions.
Yeah, and be blacked out for like up to 10 minutes, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was pretty bad.
Yeah, and it's just safe to say that Pee Wee was pretty neglected as a kid.
Yeah, I would think so.
I mean, there would be often times that Pee Wee's mom and some of her husbands or boyfriends would be over, and they would be having sex, and Pee Wee would just be there watching them.
Yeah, right in front of him.
Yeah, and they would make fun of him, or some of her boyfriends and husbands would beat Pee Wee. And it'd been reported too that, I mean, even some of the boyfriends would molest Pee Wee as a kid. So from the get go, man, he didn't have a chance.
He didn't
at
have
all.
a chance. Mom was in there making that $1.
Making that dollar, literally making that $1. That's wrong, man.
I know it. Well,
yeah.
It was funny though.
Yeah.
Funny Trump's wrong though.
Yeah.
Okay.
And like I said, they would have sex in front of Pee Wee and even laugh and even push him away when he tried to make them stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was bad. Pee Wee's mom had many lovers and also had sex with several men for money.
Right.
While Pee Wee was a child. And many of the men involved in Pee Wee's mom's life were alcoholics and would often abuse and sexual assault Pee Wee, even while his mom watched. So he was, man, he was pretty neglected.
Yeah, he had a rough life.
Yeah. And he was teased and made fun of in school by the other children because of his, his small size. And
yeah, he's always smaller than everybody else, so he was the easy target.
Yeah. And Pee Wee's teachers blamed Pee Wee for his problems with other children and would often receive beatings from the teachers for not getting along with other kids. How wrong is that? I mean, that wouldn't fly today, but
no,
that's pretty bad back then. And eventually, Pee Wee hated going to school.
Can you blame him?
No, and he would hide out in the woods all day long, and until he finally quit school at the age of 8 years old.
That's crazy.
Yeah, he was done. All right, Dale. In 1943, when Pee Wee was 10 years old, Pee Wee's mom married Hinot Hanna. He was a field hand who also treated Pee Wee pretty bad. And after marrying Hannah, Pee Wee's mom had 2 sons and 2 daughters, which were Pee Wee's half-brothers and sisters. Now, at the age of 12, in 1945, Pee Wee started working at an auto garage. 12 years old, working at an auto garage.
Yeah, I was going to say, think about that doing today's standards. I mean, quitting school at 8 and then got him a job at 12 working in the garage.
Changing oil.
Hey, boy, give me that wrench.
Yeah, changing oil and greasing stuff. Yeah. Pee Wee, he become pretty well known around town for his ability to fix stuff.
Right.
I mean, he was like just a regular handyman.
So he's kind of like a natural handyman.
Yeah.
I guess that's why I hired him.
Yeah, fixing fans and toys and appliances and different things. So, I mean, I guess, he done what he had to do to make money.
Right. He could just walk right under the car and fix it.
Oh, man. Now, me and Dale's had a pretty good evening, y'all. I'll tell you that. All right. Despite the fact that, Pee Wee was a successful mechanic and making good money, his stepfather made Pee Wee quit the auto garage so he could come work in the fields, picking cotton and picking tobacco.
Right.
But Pee Wee would sometimes sneak away to work on cars and other, to make extra money.
It's probably a lot better than working in a field.
You got that right.
Yeah.
About in a hot field. At least he'd be in the shade in a garage or something. Now, Dale, this is kind of a little bit of a turning point for Pee Wee in 1946 when he was 13. He found a small shack in the woods, which he and his friends named the Hideout. And his friends were Danny Smith and Henry Marsh. Now, these 3 guys, they referred to themselves as what?
The Trouble Trio.
Now, they got into some petty theft. They would steal candy and cigarettes from vending machines and sneak back to their hideout.
And this is their 13.
13 years old, can you imagine? And that same year, the Trouble Trio, they got into trouble at church for peeping in on girls at the women's outhouse. And they were given pretty bad beatings from their parents, but Peewee, stated he wasn't sad about it. Now, in 1948, at the age of 15, with the help of one of his buddies in the trio, Danny's father, they began breaking into homes around that area and would sell the stolen goods at local yards. And I guess, I don't know if it was yard sales, but just had a sale and would sell that stuff.
Scrap yards or what?
I don't know. Everything I heard, it was just they would just sell it.
Just whoever buys it,
I guess, yeah. And with the earnings, the boys at the age of 15 were able to buy their own car. And they would drive to Fort Jackson or Columbia, South Carolina to get prostitutes.
Man, they had it going on then.
At 15 years old. Now, it wasn't just long after that. These three
they fixing to take a dive into earning their name here.
Yeah. They were no longer interested in having sex with prostitutes. And the boys wanted to know what it was like to have sex with a virgin. Now, I guess to fulfill their fantasy, these three guys, they raped Henry's 13-year-old sister, Julie, many times and in different ways.
Yeah.
So like we told you at the beginning of this episode, if this stuff like this bothers you, don't listen to it.
And his whole story's full of it. So.
It is full of it, yep. And they raped her many times in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, all three of them.
Yep. And Julie told her mom about this. They told her what the boys had done to her. And Julie's mom informed other parents about what they'd done. And they took them to a barn. And they stripped the boys down, strung them up upside down, bare naked, and they whipped these boys.
Yeah.
Whipped them good.
Whipped them very, very bad.
I mean, they were bloody when they were done. And when they were done with them, they
cut them down, left them laying there.
Yeah, cut them down, and they laid there for hours
recovering.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. Soon after the rape, Henry and Danny's families, they moved away, and their little troubled trio, they split up.
Yeah, they were worried that the news of the rape would get back to authorities and there would be some kind of criminal stuff going, so they just packed up and left.
Yeah.
Kind of dodged that.
Yep. Now, this experience was Peewee's first violent sex, and he described it as being pretty fulfilling part of his life. Like it was gratifying to him. And there was one time Peewee's family took him to a carnival. I think it was like a carnival or some kind of sideshow, I think.
Yeah.
And they were able to go into a place where they had a king cobra.
Yep. They told him it was the world's most dangerous animal.
Yeah.
The old Barker guy.
Yeah. And what they did, they took a rat and put it in the cage with the king cobra. And Peewee was just fascinated by this, and he saw the king cobra strike that rat and kill it. He didn't eat it; he just killed it.
He killed it, and then just kind of went back over and laid back, like going back to sleep.
Yeah,
so kill it for no reason.
That rat laying there, dead there in his cage, and Peewee actually said this was very sexually satisfying to him. I mean, he got an erection off of this, and was actually embarrassed.
Right.
Yeah, he had to cover it up.
I guess just the power and of the snake doing that, to have that much power over that rat to kill it for no reason.
Yeah, and I mean, Peewee at a young age seeing this, and that.
So this dude's twisted up bad.
Yeah, from the get go.
Yeah.
All right, Dale. We're still in 1948 when Peewee was 15, and Peewee met another partner named Walt at a car shop, and they soon created a plan to break into homes and sell stolen goods for profit. So this was pretty much Peewee's MO for a while.
Yeah. Well, the other kid's dad taught him how to do it, so there you go.
Yeah. And during one of Peewee and Walt's break-ins, they were in a house that was not empty. They thought it was empty, but it wasn't. A 16-year-old girl was home and attacked Peewee with a hatchet.
Yep, chasing him right out of the house.
Yeah. And she realized the two men were robbing their family. But Peewee was able to get that hatchet away from her and hit her in the head, causing her to become unconscious.
Yeah, I think he hit her with the backside of it, not the blade.
Yeah, the blunt side of the hatchet.
Right.
Now, Walt, his partner there, was able to get away from the robbery untouched, but Peewee was charged with assault with a deadly weapon and intent to kill. And during Pee-wee's trial, this was the first time, Dale, that he actually learned what his real name was.
Yeah.
He had always referred to as Pee-wee.
Yeah, he never knew he was Donald Henry Gaskins until this point in 1948 when he was in court.
At 15 years old.
Mm-hmm.
That'll tell you how neglected this kid was.
Right.
But he was found guilty and sent to South Carolina Industrial School for Boys. I guess that was in Florence, South Carolina. I guess that's kind of like a juvie.
Yeah, it was like a reform school, but it's like supposed to be able to learn a trade. I would imagine why it's called industrial school.
Yeah, but I mean, he couldn't go to prison or jail, so I guess that's where they had to put him.
Yeah, I don't think it was a very nice place.
Now, the first night Pee-wee spent in reform school, he was approached by Boss Poss, and he was one of the main honchos at this school. And Poss, he told Pee-wee that he was going to be his sweetheart.
See, told you it's not a very nice place. This kid ain't got a chance, man.
No. And it's going to be his sweetheart from now on. And told Poss, he was told to go to Poss's bed every night or else. Yeah, I just wonder what that else was.
Yeah,
but that else,
we were weighing the options.
That else might have been better than being raped every night. I don't know. But when Pee-wee didn't obey or do what he said, the following night, Poss and about 20 of his honchos raped and sodomized Pee-wee many times.
Well, maybe that else might not have been better.
I don't know, man.
Well, the else is him and 20 other guys, or just him.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
take a choice, I guess.
Yeah. Me or it's me or else.
It's not good either way. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, man. Now, during Pee-wee's first year at this reform school, Pee-wee was Boss's sweetheart, and Poss raped Pee-wee many times every night. And Poss would also sell Pee-wee for sex, so Poss could get the cigarettes and I guess other contraband coming into the reform school.
God damn.
He was just being used.
Yeah. Well, he's little, so it's easy for him to take advantage of him.
Yeah.
What's he gonna do?
Yeah, but later on we're gonna see a big change in Pee-wee. He's gonna come out of his shell, but I mean, right now he's just going through hell. And after almost a year of sexual and emotional abuse at this school, Dale, Pee-wee and 4 other boys who were also raped by Poss's followers ran away from the school. And the next day, the police picked up the boys while they were hiding out in the woods. And when the officers were not looking, Pee-wee managed to get away and run straight to his old hideout.
Yep, went out there and hid.
Yep, that's where he had it with the Trouble Trio.
But he was found 2 days later.
Yep, and given lashes and 30 days, 3 months hard labor, and 3 months solitary confinement as punishment for running away. Mm. And Pee-wee hated solitary confinement.
Shit, I'd like that.
Yeah, because he wasn't getting raped.
Right.
He didn't like that solitary confinement.
Right. But I guess the upside was, he didn't get beaten or raped by the crowd. So,
yeah.
I don't know. I'd just soon not talk to nobody.
Yeah. I just stay in that solitary confinement with my back against the wall. Now, moving just a year ahead in 1949, when Pee-wee was 16, he was out of solitary confinement, and he continued to get raped by Poss and his followers every night. And they even once forced Pee-wee to run around in girls' underwear. And Pee-wee could not handle this abuse anymore, so he decided to run away from the reform school, but this time with another boy. And after escaping, Pee-wee went to his aunt's house, and she agreed, Dale, to let him stay there as long as he stayed out of trouble and help around the house.
Right.
So I guess this was the first time that Pee-wee had somebody in his life that he felt like it cared about him a little bit.
Right, like a mother figure that actually tried to look out for his best interest, you think?
Yeah. And after 3 months, Pee-wee's aunt convinced him to turn himself in and finish his sentence at the reform school.
Yeah, so you don't want to be on the run,
Yeah.
So go in there and get it done, do everything right, and be on the straight and narrow.
At least, yeah, serve your time and get on with your life.
Right. Be done with it.
Yeah. And once Pee-wee got back to the reform school, he was given solitary confinement again and hard labor. And every day the guards would have reasons to give Peewee additional lashes. Dang, I can't imagine. And one day, after being punished for no reason by a guard, Peewee punched the guard in the face and then in the testicles. And Peewee was sent to the state hospital for mental evaluation. Now, Dale, Peewee was only at the mental hospital for one day when his appendix ruptured, and he was sent to the hospital.
That's the best thing that happened to him yet.
Yeah. And after being treated, Peewee was sent back to reform school and given light duty for 3 months. And immediately after the light duty, the guards and Paws beat and raped Peewee every day until he once again ran away. But this time, he was by himself. He didn't have anybody with him.
Oh, God.
So constantly, I mean, all of his life up to being 16 years old, raped and ridiculed, and I mean, it just treated bad.
Yeah, belittled every day.
Yep, no pun intended. All right, Dale, in January of 1951, when Peewee was 18, he met a girl named Mary who was 13, and they were married. Yeah, and after they were married, she convinced him to return to that reform school.
Right. So when he broke out that last time, that's when he saw her and he thought she was beautiful and talked her into marrying him.
Yeah, he was really infatuated with Mary. There was no doubt about it.
He was 18 at the time. She was 13.
Yep. And Peewee got out of reform school. Peewee and Mary lived with Mary's family, and he got a job at a construction site. He did like shade tree mechanic stuff, working on cars and different things on weekends.
Right.
But Mary got pregnant, and they moved to Georgetown, South Carolina. That's right near the coast, I think. Yep.
I always see it when you're going to Myrtle Beach.
Yep. And while there, Peewee got a government contract job to log cypress trees in the swamps. And they lived there for a few months until Slick, one of Peewee's friends from reform school, offered Peewee and Mary to work for him on his tobacco farm, as well as giving him a 3-bedroom house in Johnstonville, South Carolina, with a pickup truck.
Yeah, so he had a truck and a house and another job, so sounds pretty good.
Yeah, he's moving up a little bit, no pun intended.
Right.
All right. Now, moving another year ahead in 1952, I mean, they were doing pretty good, I guess. You know, he was married, had a kid, and just living life and all that stuff.
Yeah, this is the time when Slick takes him off and they start going out to these tobacco barns, and then he's like, "What's going on?" So they take all the tobacco out of the barn and they set them on fire. But what they were doing is they were doing insurance fraud for the farmers. So they would take them out, and then the farmers would get paid twice for that tobacco because they was getting paid for the insurance from it burning up, and then they were actually taking it and selling it too. Yeah,
they were making double the money.
Right. So that's another underhanded job he's got right back into.
That's pretty slick with Slick, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we haven't had too much to drink tonight. All right. Now, Peewee and Mary's daughter was born on April 17th, 1952. And Slick got arrested for arson, but did not turn in Peewee. And because of Slick's arrest, somebody else became in charge of the tobacco fields, but allowed Peewee and Mary to stay, which was pretty nice.
Yeah, it's pretty nice.
Yep. Now, the owner that took over, his daughter got to harassing Peewee. Yeah, I guess that just hurt. I don't know if it hurt his feelings or just, being ridiculed.
Yeah, well, after harassing him, talking about him, calling him names, said that they knew that he was involved in fires, and she was going to tell her dad, and they were going to turn him in. So to shut her up, he picked up a ball-peen hammer and smashed her in the head with it.
And Peewee took off so he would not get arrested.
Yeah, he jumped in his truck and took off.
Yep. But he was picked up a few days later and was charged with assault with a deadly weapon.
Yeah, luckily she didn't die.
That's good. And he was sentenced to 5 years in South Carolina State Penitentiary in Columbia for the charges. And while in court, Peewee called the judge a son of a bitch and was given an additional year.
That'll do it.
That'll do it every time. Don't call the judge a son of a bitch. Now, another year later in 1953, when Peewee was 20 years old. He's done a lifetime of stuff right now, and he's only 20. I hadn't even done half the stuff this guy's done.
Oh.
And when he was 20 years old, after first couple weeks in prison, Peewee became Arthur's boy, an older inmate who was considered the power man by the inmates.
So he's in the same role again, this time in prison.
Yeah, in the big house.
Yeah.
Not a reform school, but he was, yeah. And Arthur beat and raped Peewee for 6 months until Peewee decided he had to be stopped. And
he devised the plan.
yeah, he was going to get out of this. So he came up with a plan to kill the guy, and his name was Hazel Brazel. Hazel Brazel was I guess his most powerful guy in prison.
Yep.
And because
he figured if he take out the head man, then he gets some respect and they'll leave him hell alone.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Right.
When Peewee devised a plan to kill Hazel Brazel, he buddied up to him.
Yeah.
He would, hang out with him and take him stuff and drugs and different things like that, just to develop a rapport with him.
Right. Just so he can get close.
Yeah. And there was one day when Hazel Brazel was sitting on the toilet, Peewee was able to get a knife from the kitchen.
Yep.
And he had it with him, and he slit Hazel Brazel's throat while he was sitting on the toilet.
Yep. And
Peewee just sat there in the cell.
He just sat on his bunk and waited for the guards to come.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, what can you do? But this boosted Peewee to the top of the rankings. I mean, he wasn't the little man in prison anymore.
Yeah, everybody knew he was done taking that shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Now, moving just a little bit ahead, again, 2 years ahead, in June of 1955, when Peewee was 21, he escaped from prison. And what he had done, Dale, the garbage pickup system they had there at the prison, he had some of his buddies drill some holes in the garbage cans, where he could, I guess, get some ventilation to be able to look out and breathe and different things. And
yeah, they had him stuff him. He had them stuff him inside the barrel.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay. Yeah, that way he could escape. So right before the truck got there to pick up, as soon as it was backing in, they stuck him in the can, put the lid on so he could be loaded on the back of the truck.
But the reason he was trying to get out of prison, he had heard that Mary was going to try to divorce him. So he was going to try to save his marriage. So he was going to get out of prison. And he managed to leave the prison in the garbage barrel.
Yep.
And they weren't checking the barrels because it stunk. They weren't going to check them things. They just let that shit go. Jumped out of the trash barrel off the side of the truck, was unnoticed, and was able to walk through the woods and get to the Peppermint gas station that was owned by a cousin of his named David Gaskin.
Yeah, there's where he stole his cousin's car, 1950 Pontiac, because he left the keys in and he took off in his car.
Yeah. Now,
that's a good guy.
Yeah. Now, Peewee didn't go see Mary because she was afraid she was going to turn him in.
Right.
So
this is when he decided to join up with the carnival.
Yeah. And he met up with the old carnival friend Poss, who lived in Lake Wales, and he went on the road with Poss and the carnival.
Right.
Peewee ended up marrying another girl, even though he was still married to Mary. He married a Junie Alice Holden, who was 19. So he was marrying somebody who was legal this time.
Yeah. Well, he was 21 at the time, so they're pretty close.
Yeah. But he ended up marrying Junie. I guess it wasn't a legal marriage. And he ended up driving Junie back to Lake Wales so he could rejoin the carnival in Valdosta. And he never heard from Junie again. Now, Dale, while Peewee was working with the carnival, he met a girl at a girly show named Zena from Zanzibar. But her real name was Betty Jean. I guess Zena from Zanzibar sounds a lot more exotic than...
Yeah. She was a contortionist, I believe.
Yeah, she was a contortionist. But they left the carnival, and they were pretty much a couple at this time. But Peewee took Betty to Tennessee to see her brother.
Right.
She told him she had a brother who was in the state penitentiary there, and she wanted to go see her brother. But Peewee found out she was wanted in 5 states for felony charges. And she asked Peewee if he would take a box of cigarettes to her brother in prison.
Yeah.
He would go over there. Even though Peewee was still wanted.
Yeah, she didn't want to go because she had all his warrants, but he was wanted too, but she talked him into it.
She was more wanted.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
She is a contortionist. She talked him into it.
Yeah. Yeah. She bent his arm a little bit. All right. But Peewee took the carton of cigarettes to Betty Jean's brother in the prison. And come to find out, that box of cigarettes had a razor in it.
Yeah. Even bigger surprise.
Yeah.
Her brother wasn't her brother.
No, that was Betty Jean's husband.
Right.
So
he escaped using that razor blade in that pack of cigarettes.
yeah, even though Peewee was wanted by the law, he went in telling the police or the prison there that his name was David Gaskins. So he told them a lie, and he thought he was going to be released, but instead he was held because the police realized he was Peewee, and he was wanted and charged with being a fugitive from the prison and with helping Betty Jean's husband escape.
Right. And he really got screwed over here because when him and Betty Jean got to Tennessee and she told him to please go take this pack of cigarettes to my brother, he didn't want to, but he did. He went ahead and did it, and he dropped them off. And when he came back, Betty Jean was gone. She was gone, took the car and gone.
And he was stuck.
He was stuck. And meanwhile, her husband was breaking out of prison, so she went to pick him up and took off and left Peewee there, and that's how he got busted.
Mm-hmm.
So when they caught up to him, that's when he lied and gave his name as David and thought he was going to get out, but they figured out who he was, and he ain't going nowhere.
Yep.
He's a fugitive from the penitentiary.
Yeah. Now, while locked up, Peewee had a reputation of being a power man, and it was in jeopardy. So he stole a knife from the kitchen and sliced a prisoner's ear off.
God almighty.
Yeah, and after that, he regained his reputation, and the inmates realized he was not to be messed with.
No.
But this incident gave him 3 more months in prison.
Right. Well, he got 6 months for helping Betty Jean's husband escape from prison, so he got 6 months more there, and then they just give him 3 more months. He just keeps stacking time.
And Peewee's just still 21 at this time. So he's done a lifetime of crime and just 21 years of age.
He ain't even got started here.
No. He did his time in Cooksville, Tennessee, and then he was extradited back to state penitentiary in Columbia, South Carolina, and was placed in a one-man cell with maximum security. And Peewee was charged by the FBI for interstate auto theft for when he stole the car in Lake City and crossed over into Tennessee.
Right.
Peewee was transferred from the pen to Richland County Jail in Columbia, South Carolina. Now, he was tried in federal court and sentenced to 3 years in federal prison in Atlanta, Georgia. Now, Dale, while in federal prison in Atlanta, Georgia, he became friends with Mr. Frank Costello, and he was the godfather of the Genovese crime family in New York. Now, Peewee was given the name Little Hatchet Man and was taken under Frank Costello's wings.
It's probably a good place to be, but I'm sure he didn't like Little Hatchet Man.
No, not at all.
Not that he's going to say anything to this guy.
Nope. Now, on August the 6th, 1961, when Peewee was 28, he was released from prison. Now, later that year, Peewee was given a job assistant working for a Reverend George E. Todd, and they were doing traveling ministry.
Right. Yeah, he hooked up with him because he was going around kind of like the carnival was, going up, setting up, doing traveling ministry. But all this whole time while he was helping out the Reverend, he was also casing places and seeing where he could go back and steal stuff.
Exactly. When they would go to another place, he would go back to where they came from and steal stuff.
Right.
Break into homes and businesses and steal stuff. So he had that stuff, plus he was making money from the Reverend. So he had a double income.
Yep.
Now, in 1962, Peewee married for a 3rd time.
He'd like to get married, didn't he?
He did. And he married an 18-year-old Jerry Dolores. Now, he left the traveling ministry and went back to robbing and stealing stuff, which was not making enough money.
So he had to go stealing for full time.
Yeah, he did. Now, there was a 12-year-old girl named Patsy that lived near his mother. And in early September, on a Saturday, Peewee molested her. And Peewee was taken to Florence County Jail and charged with statutory rape and carnal knowledge of a child.
12 years old.
12 years old. While at the Florence County Courthouse, Deputies had removed handcuffs on Peewee, and while he waited for his attorney and prosecutor, Peewee escaped by jumping 30 feet out of a window. And he stole a county car with the keys still in ignition.
I'm sure that wasn't a good landing. That's a long way.
30 feet.
To a parking lot?
Yeah. Yeah. It wasn't a short drop. Yeah. All right. Peewee went to his mother's house to get money and headed for Prospect. This was in South Carolina. Prospect's in Florence County. And he ditched the car in the water off a highway and made it on foot toward the town of Dillon. Now, once in Dillon, he stole a 1962 Ford Galaxy. And the following day, he crossed the state line into North Carolina and the Lumbee Indian Reservation in Pembroke.
62. That was a brand new car. This was 1962.
Yeah, it was a brand new vehicle. Now, staying in a boarding house, the next day he drove the car to Charlotte, North Carolina, and left it, and caught a bus to Raleigh, and bought a 1949 Ford and drove it to Pembroke. Now, it was just shortly after that, Peewee married his fourth wife, and she was 17, so he's going back underage again.
Yeah.
And she was 17-year-old, and she was a Lumbee girl named Lenny Oxendine. And after 3 months of marriage, he grew tired of the marriage, and he informed her that he was going to the store and never come back. I guess go to get a pack of cigarettes and never come back.
That's the way it goes.
Yeah. Now, it wasn't long after that, Dale, he contacted his wife, Jerry, that he was still married to, and she was upset about what happened with the little girl, Patsy, that he had raped.
Yeah.
And he tried sweet-talking her, and they agreed to go to Lake Wales, Florida, to look for his pal Poss to try to get the job with the carnival. And he was informed that Poss had killed himself at the funeral home after he had heard that his wife and 4 kids had died in a fire in their trailer.
Poor old Poss.
Yeah, so Peewee wasn't getting a job at the carnival.
No.
Now, Peewee was saddened by this, and now his plans to work with the carnival and steal parts from cars was gone, Dale. He couldn't do that anymore.
Right. So let me get it straight before we go any farther. This Poss guy, that's the same guy that raped him every night in Juvie, right?
Yep.
Okay, that's what I thought. He kept hooking up with him, so.
Yeah. I don't know. I've always wondered. I've read it. Thought about Peewee had some homosexual tendencies.
He probably didn't have much choice.
Yeah. I always wondered that and read that in a couple places.
Well, I don't know. It didn't say they hooked up when they got back together, but damn, if you're going to rape me every night for all that time and I'm going to go hang out with you.
No, But anyway.
I can find more friends.
You got that right there, yeah. But Jerry, his wife, told him that she did not want to be with a man on the run, and she was going back home.
Yeah.
And now thinking about going back to his wife, Lenny, in Pembroke. So he's just got wives
everywhere.
He's got wives everywhere. And while Peewee was driving across the state line into Georgia, he heard sirens and tried to escape the police, but blew out the front tire, and the car went into the water.
Yeah, crashed in the swamps.
Yep. And leaving Jerry behind with the cops to deal with her. So he escaped.
Yeah, so he jumped out in the water and took off and left her to deal with the cops.
Yep.
Great guy.
Now, after Peewee was hiding out and came upon some train tracks and he said he was able to use the sun for navigation. He was able to follow the tracks. One night, just outside a small town north of Savannah, he reached a train yard where he got into a freight car that was empty and crawled up in a corner and went to sleep until he made it to Savannah.
Right.
And there he got a room and new clothes and headed for the bus station to go back to Pembroke, North Carolina.
So he's just going all over the place.
Yeah. And he went back to his wife, Lenny, who wasn't happy to see him because she had seen his picture in the newspaper and on television and saying that he was a killer and he had drowned in the marsh.
Yeah, she thought he had died in that car wreck.
Yep. And his wife, Jerry, his other wife, Jerry, had been released with no charges. Man. Now, the next morning, Lenny contacted the police, who woke Peewee up and handcuffed him. And 2 days later, he was extradited back to the county jail in Florence, South Carolina. And he was sentenced to 6 years for statutory rape, and that was for Patsy.
Yeah.
And an additional 2 years for his escape from Florence County Courthouse. So he's not even 31 years old. And
stacking up more years.
Yep. Now, when he was 31 in 1964, Dale, he was back in prison at the Central Correctional Institute in Columbia, where he regained his status as a power man. The power man. Yeah, he's learning to
He's gonna be top man. He didn't gonna short circuit.
Exactly. Now, I guess there was some time passed right here from 1964 to 1968, and he did his time. He was being good in prison. He didn't get involved in anything. He just sort of laid low. And the warden there, his name was Willis McDougald, and he believed in rehabilitating and not punishing crimes. And he actually wrote a letter of recommendation to the parole board asking them to release Peewee because of his good behavior. Peewee was able to go to him and get in good with him. Peewee was paroled in November after doing 4 years, but one condition was placed on his release. He could not step foot back in Florence, South Carolina for 2 years.
So he must have been a pretty smooth talker, I guess.
Yeah.
He found a job doing roofing for a construction company in Sumter, but he also, on the weekends and evenings, he was reworking and repainting stolen cars, so he's right back in there.
Yeah, he's back in
He can't get out of it.
Back in the crime. Now, while doing a robbery with two teenage boys, the boys turned a knife on Peewee and took all of his money. And after he was robbed, Peewee waited for the young boys at their home with his .32 Beretta automatic.
Yep.
And at gunpoint, he ordered them into his trunk of his car and drove the boys to the swamp. And he ordered them to hand over the money and jewelry and instructed them to take off their clothes, and he would let them live. If they ever crossed him, they were dead.
Yeah, so he put them in the trunk and just drove them miles and miles and miles into the swamp. And when he finally let them out, they had no idea where they were. They were out in the middle of nowhere. And he forced them. He took everything from them, all their money, even their clothes, and left them out there naked, but not knowing anywhere they were.
Yep. All right, Dale. We're going to stop right here with this episode. This is going to be a two-parter for us.
It's our first one.
Yeah, this will be our first two-parter.
But there's just too much on him to squeeze into one episode. There's no way we can.
I mean, when you're doing an episode about the meanest man in America, it has to be a two-parter.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to get out of here on part one. We want everyone to be safe, be careful, and always be aware of your surroundings.
Because the next episode could be about you.
This is the Crack House Chronicles.